Hello and good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Natalie Lenore Blackman, and I am back with Learning to Abide in the Secret Place. And I hope you were able to hear me. I'm in my sunroom, and so the rain is a little loud, but it is the only place that I have to get away on my own from my family. And I just wanted to do a little quick session today on the importance of the soil that we're going to sow our seeds into. And I wanted to do this because I was reminded of this morning in my work with cleansing out the soil. And just to give us another little understanding of that, going back to the garden. So if I'm going to plant my tomato plants, I can't just put them in the same soil that I used last year, right? Unless I used a nitrogen fixer. So that would be if they're planted in the ground. But we do container planting. And so with container planting, we actually change out the soil. And we do that because we want to make sure that our tomato plants are getting the best food, the best nutrients, because they're our favorite fruit to eat during the summer. And in fact, I just eat tomatoes all summer long. And so using that as our analogy, I want us to understand that we can't plant seeds into bad soil. And so we're talking about healing the body, quantum healing, right? And we're talking about, and in doing that and healing the body and bringing about the fruits of the Spirit or harvest, that we're healing the mind, the will, and the emotions. That's the soul. We're healing the brain, which is controlling the body. It actually responds to the soul. And then we want to make sure our heart or our spirit is in the right place, because that controls all of it. It controls the soul and the body. So we want that soil of the heart and then of the soul, we want it to be good soil, okay? And I'm just going to read you a scripture. I actually have a scripture today because this is what I was working on myself this morning. And this comes from, it's called the Parable of the Sower, and it's Matthew 13. And this is about Jesus telling a parable. And it's Matthew 13:3. And he told them many things in parables, saying, a sower went out to sow. And as he sowed his seeds, some seeds fell by the roadside, and the birds came and ate them up. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and at once they sprang up because they had no depth of soil. So they sprang up quickly like weeds do. Weeds get right on the surface of the soil and they spring up really easy. But when the sun rose, they were scorched because they did not have any root, and so they dried up and withered away. And so anytime something plants like on the surface of the soil like that and it doesn't have root, it can't absorb water well, so the sun can just scorch it and it's gone like that, right? Other seeds fell among thorns, and then the thorns grew up and choked those seeds out. Other seeds fell on very good soil and yielded grain, some 100 times as much as was sown, some 60 times as much, and some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear, and let him consider and perceive. Perception is our eyes and how we see the world and how we understand. And we're going to get into that because the eyes are the window to the liver. So we'll be getting into that in the next couple of days. He says, he who has ears to hear, let him hear, let him consider this, let him perceive it, let him comprehend it in the heart by hearing it. Our eye gate, our ear gate, our eye gate, our ear gate. What are we putting in those, right? So the parable this morning, what I was working on, which I think is extremely crucial for the liver, is bitterness, okay? And I was reminded of, I've been working a lot on this actually, but today I was reminded again through some things with the building at our office that I had a very, very, very difficult business deal, let's say that. I'm getting into this building. A lot of injustice. Does that make sense? A lot of injustice was done. And I'm a person of justice, so I get really upset when things are not according to justice. Let's just say that. And so it brought a lot of bitterness in my heart, and I have to physically and mentally and spiritually work on rooting that bitterness out. And this bitterness, these seeds were planted in 2019, and it's 2022, and I'm still trying to get those out. Okay. So it's not I don't want this to sound like it's a striving thing. It's not about striving, but it's a work in process, right? So I'm working on my soil. And if I'm going to be planting seeds into this soil this spring, and I want them to produce a harvest of love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness. If I want them to produce that, then I'm constantly having to go in and get out those things in my soil that will choke the seed or prevent the seed from being planted. So when I think of bitterness, I think of rocky ground. I just think it gets hard, like bitter, like it's hard. And so I would be like planting the seeds that fell on rocky ground. They did not have much soil. They sprang up quickly, right? But they were scorched very, very fast. So when we're planting these seeds in our heart of the harvest that we want to produce, which is I want health, I want divine health in my body, and I don't want bitterness to show up, because I'm noticing that bitterness shows up. And in me, the way bitterness shows up is you look like hardened, right? And my skin has been looking hardened, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to look that way. I don't want to look like I've weathered a storm. Okay, that's to me what bitterness looks like in a person. Like, wow, they've been through a lot, right? I mean, they've really weathered the storms of life. And we do weather storms of life. I mean, we all just came through 2020, and 2020 wasn't nearly as traumatic to me as 2021 was. So we've weathered these storms of life. And if we don't want to look like we've weathered them, and in a natural sense, not by going and getting wonderful hyaluronic injections or something, which I can't do because I'm holistic. But so if I'm trying to find the internal way to soften my skin, right? Like I don't want to look traumatized. I don't want to look beaten up. And in order to do that, I've got to go in and uproot these bitter roots, okay? And we have bitter roots from when we were as young as children, okay? I mean, technically, the most that our bodies are producing fruits from is the harvest from when we were in the womb to 8 years of age, okay? That's really difficult to think about, because we have all the trauma that happened to us even when we became, adolescent, and then adults, and all that craziness, right? So as we go through the work, I want us to be thinking about the soil that way. Like, okay, what does my soil look like right now? Does it look rocky? Does it have a lot of vultures waiting there to just grab the seed? Does it have a lot of thorns? That can be bitterness too, resentment, anger, depression, anxiety. So like, what is in my soil that I want to cleanse this season, right? We want to cleanse the past seasons and move forward into the new season. And we want our soil to be ready for planting and to be ready to put those seeds into the soil. So today, I would just ask, as part of like the little homework for us to do, today is just begin to think of your soil and begin to decide what is in my soil that I need to root up. And in particular, we're working with the liver. So with the liver, we're going to be looking at bitterness, resentment, anger, frustration, irritation. Those are the big ones for the liver and the gallbladder. So we're going to try to take this season by season and root up all the junk in each season out of the soil and move forward to planting our seeds so we can produce a harvest. I hope you have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.